In the heart of the 18th century, a pivotal event was unfolding on the Indian subcontinent. The year was 1764, a period of immense political upheaval and change. The Mughal Empire, once a formidable force, was now in decline. The British East India Company, on the other hand, was steadily gaining ground, expanding its influence and control. This was an era of power shifts and strategic alliances, a time when the fate of nations hinged on the outcome of battles. And at the center of this maelstrom was the Battle of Buxar. The Mughal Empire, once the jewel of the Indian subcontinent, had seen better days. It was an empire that had brought forth a golden age of culture, arts, and architecture. Its influence had been vast, its power unchallenged. But as the saying goes, all that glitters is not gold. The Mughal Empire in its twilight years was plagued by political instability, internal conflicts, and a crumbling economy. Its once mighty army was now a shadow of its former self, and its territories were slowly slipping away. The weakening of the Mughal Empire created a power vacuum ripe for the taking, setting the stage for the rise of new powers. The Battle of Buxar was not an isolated event. It was part of a broader narrative that had been unfolding for years. It was the culmination of a series of conflicts and power struggles that had been brewing between the British East India Company and the rulers of Bengal, Awadh, and the Mughal Empire. The British East India Company, originally a commercial venture, was steadily gaining power. Established in 1600, this entity was granted a royal charter by Queen Elizabeth I, giving it the monopoly of English trade with the East Indies. Its main objectives were to explore, trade, and establish a foothold in the lucrative spice trade. Over time, however, its focus shifted. It began to exploit the political and economic instability of the Indian subcontinent, using a blend of diplomacy, strategic alliances, and military force to expand its control. The company, with its private armies, was no longer just about trade. It was morphing into a political entity, steadily gaining control over vast territories and resources. Its influence was growing rapidly, setting the stage for the battles that were yet to come. The spark that ignited the powder keg was the Battle of Plassey in 1757, where the British East India Company, led by Robert Clive, defeated the Nawab of Bengal. This victory marked a turning point, signaling the beginning of British dominance in India. But it also set the stage for further conflict. For in the wake of the Battle of Plassey, the rulers of Awadh and the Mughal Empire, threatened by the growing power of the British East India Company, formed an alliance to challenge their authority. In the midst of this power struggle, we find the Nawabs of Bengal and Awadh, once powerful rulers, now under great threat. These Nawabs, who had presided over their territories with authority and influence, found themselves increasingly challenged by the British East India Company. They were forced to navigate a landscape drastically altered by the Battle of Plassey. Their rule, once unchallenged, was now contested. In an attempt to resist this encroachment, they formed alliances and sought to fortify their positions. However, despite their efforts, they found themselves unable to resist the growing power and influence of the British East India Company. Their struggle, a poignant testament to the changing tides of power, set the stage for the upcoming Battle of Buxar. The Battle of Buxar took place on October 22, 1764. On one side of the battlefield stood the combined forces of the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II, the Nawab of Awadh, Shuja-ud-Daula, and the deposed Nawab of Bengal, Mir Qasim. On the other side, the British East India Company, led by Hector Munro. The battle was brutal and fiercely contested, but when the dust settled, it was the British East India Company that emerged victorious. The Mughal Emperor was captured, and the Nawabs of Bengal and Awadh were compelled to sign the Treaty of Allahabad in 1765, which effectively placed their territories under British control. The Battle of Buxar was more than just a military conflict. It was a turning point in the history of the Indian subcontinent. It marked the beginning of British colonial rule in India and set the stage for the events that would unfold over the next 2 centuries. In summary, the Battle of Buxar was a culmination of conflicts between the British East India Company and the rulers of Bengal, Awadh, and the Mughal Empire. The battle resulted in a decisive victory for the British East India Company, which led to the signing of the Treaty of Allahabad and the onset of British colonial rule in India. The Battle of Buxar serves as a stark reminder of the complex interplay of power, politics, and military strategy that shaped the history of the Indian subcontinent. It is a chapter in our history that continues to resonate, reminding us of a time when the fate of nations was decided on the battlefield.